We are Right America Media.
All right, that is perfect jamming music. Welcome to Granite State Live. We are back in studio. Unfortunately, my co-host Keith Hanson cannot be here today, but I got a excellent replacement, a buddy Andy from Citizens Doge USA. If you're on X, Citizens Doge on every other platform, here in New Hampshire, trying to make a difference on the ground, is going to be hanging out with me in studio. We're going to have a banger episode for you because during the break between my podcast and this one, we were having an excellent discussion about American cultural decay and how the greatest generation of American actors, you know, the ones that really changed cinema and set the bar worldwide for what we should expect out of Hollywood before Hollywood went woke and retarded. They're dying off. And who do we have to replace them? It seems like the redcoats are coming. The redcoats are coming because half of the major fantastic actors in Hollywood in our generation are British. Hell, famous TV. What do you mean, my wife? We like to watch this show, All American. Black actor is the main character, has this perfect East LA accent, right? And it turns out we watch the you know the credits and the interviews and stuff afterwards, and the guy's British, and we're like, well, flawless accent, by the way, but what the hell? Where are we going with this? You know, so we're gonna sit here and have a discussion because during the break we're talking about music. It started with music, right? I used to work security for a lot of celebrities and stuff, and we used to do concerts, and I got to meet like Eric Burden and the Animals, and I got to meet War, and I got to Alice in Chains, and you have all these bands that have these unique sounds, and they come out with the music that transcends generations, and 20, 30, 40 years later, you're like, damn, I remember that sound. And that sound is so sweet and so good. And it's like what you said, Whitney Houston. Anybody hears Whitney Houston and go, icon. And I feel like our generation has lost that because a lot of the people we consider icons today, I don't see their music as generational music that is going to last 30, 40, 50, 60 years. They may have maybe one song or two songs that you'll notice, but like not like the old generation that had entire albums.
Absolutely. I think that, I've noticed we're about the same age, so I've noticed that the 1980s, the music of the 80s, the culture of the 80s holds a special place in the hearts and minds of a lot of us who don't really remember that time or only remember it very faintly. I don't know if that has a parallel in people a little bit older than us, but the 90s, one thing that's interesting about the 90s and the music of the 90s is that, so I'm 39 years old, and I can tell if I'm at a bar someplace. I don't frequent bars nearly as often as I used to, but when I'm in a burger bar watching a football game or a baseball game, and I hear music from like 1997, like going on somebody's Spotify playlist or somebody's other playlist playing in the background, I immediately go, I'm pretty sure the person who picked this is about my age.
Yeah.
So there's definitely and I think it crosses genres sometimes too. There's definitely a spate of music from like 1995 or 6 through about 2000 or 2001 that I think is personally meaningful for different reasons to people around your age and mine. But to your point, I don't think it crosses generations, and I don't think that it's something that even stays with you, like a lot of the music we were discussing off air. That came from generations that were older.
I think like so. I was just talking about one of the bands I love from the past, like John Cafferty and the Beaver Brown Band, an entire album that every song it touched your soul. You felt something when you listened to it. We were talking about the Beatles, how I think the Beatles are incredibly overrated. Great producers, great writers, but everybody does their music better than they do. Like my favorite version of Come Together is Joe Cocker. I think that raspy, bluesy, deep, dirty, dank sort of like when he hits that bass and you hear it rumble in your chest, you're like, oh, I'm there. And like when you see a lot of the music that comes out, it's highly synthetic. The vocals aren't particularly unique in most cases. It's so overproduced that you're like, you can just plug a name in there and anybody could have hit big with that song. And it's just, we've lost the thing that made American music special and unique. Like we had a rock sound that transcended borders, that made the whole world like, damn, America's where I need to be. And it was same like a 90s hip hop, 80s, 90s hip hop. Biggie Smalls, Tupac, poetry put to music, Slick Rick, Run DMC, Naughty by Nature. It's like you had so many artists back in the day, Lauryn Hill, so many artists back in the day that like they had this sound and they had this syntax and this smooth style and the way that they flowed and the message they were trying to convey, that you knew, yeah, you're trying to have a good time, but you were going to get some truth out of what you were listening to. And that the content of it, there was content there that was worth hearing. And now it's like everything is either raw vulgarity. Like even my criticism of like this, what's her name? The new big actress that everybody loves, or I'm sorry, musician everybody loves so much and compares to Taylor Swift is Sabrina. Mm-hmm. She basically, and now Katy Perry just did it too, copy the whole Taylor Swift performance, and I'm looking at these artists and I'm like, my gripe with Miley Cyrus and my gripe with Sabrina and my gripe with Taylor Swift is you were marketed towards kids, specifically young kids, and then immediately started with the toxic, like Sabrina specifically to an extreme, and Miley Cyrus to the extreme, with the extreme vulgarity while still being targeted at kids. You went straight from Disney Channel, not to this, hey, I'm an adult now. It was like Disney striptease on stage and getting bent over in an Eiffel Tower position. And I'm sitting there going, is this where we've gone? To where like we're actively marketing this shit towards elementary school kids? Like, this is sad. And it was the same with Hannah Montana. She went from being Hannah Montana to Miley Cyrus butt naked on stage. I'm like, what the hell is happening here?
There was a brief interlude with Party in the USA, if I remember correctly, but that lasted the equivalent of like 5 minutes.
Yeah. It hit like top of the charts. It's like Party in the USA, suck me, boom. I'm like, oh shit.
I'll never. I always remember that song and when it was a hit because it was right after I signed my lease in my first apartment, and I was riding back with the couple of guys I was living with at the time to the place where we had been congregating before we actually went to the place and signed the lease. But one of them was blaring that song in the front seat, and I was kind of like, I guess I go along with this. It's all right.
No, I'll give Miley Cyrus credit for that because that is the song that I think is going to last generations. I think that one will actually last because it's somewhat. It is. Shit, I just watched all three like Pitch Perfect movies with my daughters and my wife. It is one of those songs that hits a patriotic chord. It is fun. It is sort of innocent in this way that like everybody can sort of identify with it, and it'll transcend sort of like Love Shack and shit like that. 99 Balloons Go By, Take Me Home, things like that. And I'll even say that for like Wrecking Ball. Wrecking Ball is another one of those songs. But you hear most of the music coming out of most of these artists, especially the ones that used to be Disney Channel kids. I'm like, what's special about your sound? How is it? What is unique about you? How is it any different from anything that anybody else does?
We said Disney Channel too, and that's a whole nother ball of wax. I think almost everybody of a certain age who came through that whole pipeline, by the time, I'm sure it's more true for female stars too, but it seems like they all hit 18 or 21 or 25 and they were just profoundly screwed up, and you hear their jaded sensibility through their music. I'm sure that like the overproduction aspect that we were talking about is a big thing too, but they're all just they seem like they've half given up on life by the time they've hit what should be their prime, and that comes out in their music, which only adds to all the trends we're talking about.
Well, there's a whole bunch of rumors coming out, that have been around Disney and Nickelodeon for years about drug abuse and human trafficking and, sexual abuse and stuff like that. And then it gets into this sort of dynamic where these kids are forced to play roles either much older than they actually are, forcing them to mature faster than they should in doing content that they probably shouldn't be doing at their age, to the point where then they're much older than their actual characters are, and they still have to put on this persona of playing these high school kids. So like a good example of this would be like Glee. I remember when Glee was really, really big, the whole cast did a GQ cover magazine, a GQ cover suit, and people lost their shit. They're like, how dare you make all these teenagers hypersexualized? And it's like, they're all adults. Not only are they all adults, they're all well into adulthood. Like, a couple of the dudes were in their 30s playing high school kids. And you're watching this and you're sitting here going, how messed up are you going to be when everybody's looking at you? Your entire public persona is that you're a high school kid and you're in your 30s. You're not allowed to act like an adult publicly. You're constantly in this, and for a lot of the Disney kids, this is where the problem comes, right? Because they're maturing physically, but they're not allowed to portray the fact that they're maturing. They're not allowed to act like adults or be seen as adults out in public. So they're constantly having to subvert themselves, and that comes with psychological issues, right? Because now you're not just playing a role on screen, you're playing a role in your daily life, and you're never allowed to actually be a human being. And I think that's where they all get messed up. So what's the quickest way to freaking bug in the studio, man? What's the quickest way to do that? Get on drugs. Yeah. Get a little bit of schizophrenia in you.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of sad situations among that segment. Yeah, we hope the culture turns around one day. We're talking about all being in a ski slope going straight downhill. We hope it turns around at some point.
Reminder to everybody, call in. The number is 833-603-8255. That's 833-603-8255. 833-603-TALK. All right, go ahead and call in if you have an opinion on the American cultural decay and how we're just not keeping up with previous generations. So we talked about music, right? We talked about, during the break, we were talking about Mick Jagger, AC/DC, and, we got on this topic because Ozzy Osbourne just died. And how iconic Ozzy's sound, his performance, everything was like, that guy lasted generations. Black Sabbath is going to last generations. Kiss, last generation. Whitesnake, last generations. You have all these bands that you're like, their sound, their impact, their influence is going to last generations. And then we have our generation. Rock and roll. in our generation is damn near dead, beat into the ground. Country has gone so commercialized, you barely ever hear anything worth listening to anymore. Hip hop has become so degraded and so dank and nasty. Trap music is like the freaking disgusting degeneracy. There's no value in it anymore. Blues and jazz have been shoved off to the side like redheaded stepchildren locked in a closet. They're basically Harry Potter at this point. And then you have like pop music. And pop music has gone from being cookie cutter, hit me baby one more time, to now, like, I don't even want to say the words on air, but it's ridiculous. And then we get into, Hollywood. And, here's something. Famous black actors that are going to last generations, but they're all older, right? They're all older. They're not our generation. These are all Gen X. But go ahead and throw that up, Mr. Producer. Look at that. Yeah, famous black actors from the previous generation right there. They're going to, those guys. You remember prior to Will Smith hitting Chris Rock, he didn't have a single box office bomb. Dwayne Johnson, yes, people, he is Samoan. Yes, he is also black. Dwayne Johnson hasn't had a single movie that bombed at the box office. He is like the safest bet for Hollywood in anything. Denzel Washington, flawless execution. Tyler Perry. I got mixed feelings. I got mixed feelings, man. Tyler Perry's plays in the beginning were awesome. His original movies were awesome. Then Tyler Perry, and every movie had a moral undercurrent, that you were a heavy moral undercurrent, lessons you were supposed to take from the movie, right? And then he became the #1 producer of all the shit and stereotypes that black people have been trying to get away from. He became the #1 producer of it. It was like, hey, there's something under this message here. And then he became the #1 producer of the crap that we want to get away from. And then you have the last one. Throw that back up there. Yeah, right there.
Do you know what we're talking about?
Huh?
Do you know who that is?
Yeah, that's Robert Downey Jr.
I was
Yeah,
that's
Robert Downey Jr.
I was too afraid to say
Yeah,
it.
from Tropic Thunder.
Exactly. That's the
I don't
joke.
care. I don't care what anybody says. They say you're not supposed to do blackface, but that's the one exception. I haven't heard in real life. I've had this conversation so many times with people, and everybody's like, Robert Downey Jr. can get away with blackface. That was the best version of ever. It was so freaking good.
What I've
cooking
seen-
shrimp down by the bayou, a little saucier on it. Yeah.
The old SNL sketches I've seen of Eddie Murphy, I think Eddie Murphy can get away with it too. Eddie Murphy,
Oh, yeah.
Eddie Murphy's pretty much got a pass for anything comedic.
Eddie Murphy did whiteface multiple times. He
yeah,
did
I said it
whiteface.
backwards.
And what was the other one? It was Gene Wilder did blackface too.
Oh,
Yeah, in the movie, and he did it in the movie with Richard Pryor, wasn't it? I think it was
He
Richard
may have.
Pryor,
Yeah.
and Gene Wilder, and Gene Wilder did blackface, and friggin' Eddie Murphy has done so many iterations. Like what was it? Coming to America, he played 7 different roles in the movie.
yeah,
Including a white Jewish guy.
The boxing debate scene in the barbershop.
Dude, we don't even have comedians like the old
No,
generation did.
no.
Like we, what are the most famous comedians out there? Right, you got Dave Chappelle. Richard Pryor's dead. You had, Gene Wilder. You had Chris Rock, still Gen X.
Jerry
Seinfeld, still Gen X. You have a lot of these actors and comedians from the older generation, and I'm seeing the new actors. I'm like, a lot of y'all suck.
The one who's really getting pushed hard right now, and who I do think is legitimately funny, though I don't think he's quite as funny as he's given credit for, is Shane Gillis.
Shane Gillis is funny.
And there are other guys on the podcast circuit like Andrew. Oh gosh, I'm forgetting his last name. He goes on Rogan a lot.
I know who you're talking about, but I never land on his name.
I'm blanking on his last name, but he's funny. But I've seen more of his stuff on the podcast circuit being funny than I have seen him on stage being funny.
Matt Rife is good.
I think part of it too is just the neurosis of the comedians who came along 20, 25 years ago. Like they were willing to be
controversial
and idiosyncratic and neurotic on stage, and maybe that came naturally to them.
but
it
true
was,
at the same time. Like George Carlin. How much truth did that guy spit? I mean, granted, politically, I probably don't line up with him.
Enough cocaine to kill a small horse.
Yeah, like politically, I probably don't line up with him as much as people think, because on the surface, you're like, damn, this is some pretty libertarian, conservative sounding shit, and it's like, and this is why we need socialized healthcare, and I'm like, and how did you get to all that truth and then end up literally doubling down on the problem? I don't understand it. I've never got how people end up doubling down on the exact same problem after identifying the problem. Right. I'm like, but it's like, if you're telling me that it's a small club and we're not in it, why would you want to give more power to the small club that we're not in, expecting them to do good things for the people who are not a part of their club? Doesn't make sense. But he had a lot of truth about how things work behind the scenes, and you're like, you walked away from it. You laughed, but you also thought about it. Same with Robin Williams. There were a lot of bits that came out of the old school comedians, and you walked away from it laughing, but also going, damn. Like, you remember Chris Rock's, I reference it a lot. When he's talking about his son, he goes, outside this house, nobody gives about you. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about your feelings. None of that. And the people in the house, still on the fence. Yeah. And he goes, people love women, children, and dogs unconditionally. As a man, you are only worth what you can provide to people. And I was like, and everybody laughed. And at the same time, it's like if you listen, you hear almost like this sigh of like every guy in the audience, like that child inside of him dying a little bit more because it's true.
Because it's true, yeah.
Yeah, it's like there's a meme going around the internet of these guys filming their wives and going, I have tried 365 times to sleep with you. You have rejected me 360 times, and here were the given excuses. And they run down the list, and the girls are laughing, right? And like we all sort of laugh and poke fun at it, and then you're sitting here going like, your husband reached out for connection with you 365 times, and you rejected him 360. And when you hear the excuses, I have a headache. It's too hot. It's too cold. My hair hurts. Like it's like, wow, that's cold-hearted, man. But on a more light note, I mean, we do have some hope, right? So we have like Michael B. Jordan. We have Scott Eastwood. And we're talking about just American actors, people. We're not including the British actors because that's cheating. That's cheating. You can't include British actors.
No Jamie Dornans, no Hemsworth brothers.
No,
are up for consideration here.
But you got some TV actors like the Jensen Ackles and stuff like the Supernatural brothers. You have Robbie. I think it's Robbie and Tommy Amell, who were CW actors, and they have a lot of potential. But I don't see them getting the roles. And what was that? What was that other one you brought up?
Timothy Chalamet.
Yeah, Timothy Chalamet.
Who I had heard things
and
about.
Tyler Hoechlin.
Hoechlin, yeah.
Hoechlin,
I hope that he still gets a chance to resuscitate his potential. It's probably too late at this point. I mean, to be fair, he is younger than I am. So when I'm talking about somebody's potential, it's a little funny to be slagging on it. But
in Hollywood, I don't know. Potential is weird though, because like, I feel like everybody who has potential gets typecasted as a Marvel hero now because we've exhausted so many of the mainstream actors in Hollywood that we're picking them out of the womb and we're going, you're going to be the next Marvel cinematic superhero and you're going to do that for 15 years and you're going to be washed up. You're never going to be able to play another role again. But good news, you're going to make $1 billion.
And absolutely. And there was this format that emerged in mostly teen-targeted TV programming in like the late 90s, about the era when you and I were becoming adolescents, I think, where you just had a lot of teenage boys and people, slightly older actors playing teenage boys who had like these like a particular look about them. And when they got older, if they got good roles when they were young, they became actors on like Seventh Heaven. And that's what happened to Tyler Hoechlin. Like that's literally what happened to him. Like people were so singing his praises, not just for his dramatic ability, but for how handsome he was going to be after he was in Road to Perdition with Tom Hanks, Paul Newman, and Jude Law, one of my absolute favorite movies. That he just got typecast as a pretty boy after that. Yeah. And maybe, you never know with these guys, but maybe he never had ambitions to be anything else. He was just like, hey, maybe I just want to be praised and date pretty girls and call it a life.
Hey, it's better than a lot of shit coming out of Hollywood. All right, up next, we're going to have a guest on, Daniel Greenfield, to discuss the real story behind Jeffrey Epstein. Up next. See you soon. United We Stand, A Marine's Fight. Written by Julian Acciard. I wrote this book to decipher through the tumultuous political dialogue and political gangbanging we see on both sides of the aisle between politicians, activists, influencers, and pundits, and get down to brass tacks solutions in order to save our republic. Again, United We Stand, A Marine's Fight, written by Julian Acciard. You can purchase the book on Amazon, Kindle, and Barnes & Noble.
Would you rather spend time with family and friends in the pool or at the barbecue rather than landscaping your yard? Well, Augusta Lawn Care is here to help you with all of your landscaping needs. Proudly serving southern New Hampshire, we handle everything. Weekly mowing, spring and fall cleanups, bush trimming, mulch installs, lawn treatments, aeration, dethatching, and even snow plowing and salting when the dreaded winter hits. Call Augusta Lawn Care today and let your yard be the best-looking yard on the block. Call 603-331-4768. Augusta Lawn Care, locally owned, professionally done. Call 603-331-4678 or visit us online at AugustaLawnCareServices.com/Londonderry. That's AugustaLawnCareServices.com/Londonderry.
New Hampshire Republican Governor Kelly Ayotte has been making a lot of noise about how she's funding education. The Republican budget she just signed provides more money for education than ever before. She even bragged the other day that New Hampshire is top 10 in the country when it comes to funding our children's education, as if giving money to school systems has anything to do with learning. If you look at the math, and if you got schooled in New Hampshire, the odds are good it's not your best subject. It's the exact opposite. The more money we throw at schools, the less kids learn. We're committed to wasting money on an experiment that failed, unless wasting money to drive parents to homeschool their kids was the goal. We prefer to pick on Democrats, lower hanging fruit and all that, but our rhetorical woodshed doesn't discriminate. If that sounds refreshing, you need to check us out. This is Steve McDonald for Granite Rock, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
This could be the moment we've been waiting for, the chance to feel alive.
Sometimes we forget we live in one of the most beautiful states in the country. This summer, vacation right here and discover your new.
This is where it all begins.
right, welcome back to Granite State Live. We are live in studio with my buddy Andy from Citizens Doge. Again, the phone lines are working tonight at 833-603-TALK. That's 833-603-8255. All right, so you can call in. Up next, we're going to be talking, we're going to get into a serious topic, right? So we see everything that's been happening with Jeffrey Epstein around, and we see that the Trump administration has basically said they went from, we're going to give you the files, and here's a bunch of influencers who are going to have the inside track on stuff, right? You know, a bunch of redacted nothings. And this has been hyped up for years, right? And I'm going to be honest, it didn't have to go this way. Had Trump not made it a campaign promise, this would have stayed in the bowels of conspiracy theory land. Okay, and yes, it would have still been getting talked about, but he wouldn't be getting any blame for it, or any specific blame for it, had he not flat out said, I'm going to release the Jeffrey Epstein files. And then we get told that there is no list, despite being told that there was a list, and that Pam Bondi had the list and was going to provide the list. Now we get told there is no list. Apparently Jeffrey Epstein had no list of clients, unlike any criminal mastermind that we've ever heard of. Like, you mean a drug dealer doesn't have clients? A human trafficker doesn't have clients? Who are they human trafficking to? Nobody? Hopes and dreams? So we see all this stuff, and you see a lot of the rhetoric online, right? You see a lot of the grifters, you see a lot of the people making a big deal out of it. And I'm not saying it shouldn't be made a big deal out of it. But what I am saying is, lost in the sauce is the level of nuance and truth that we should be aiming towards going into this next segment. And here to discuss it is Daniel Greenfield. He's a conservative columnist and investigative journalist who is a Shillman journalism fellow at Front Page Magazine and executive vice president of programs at the David Horowitz Freedom Center. Thank you for coming on the show. So, rumor has it, sir, that you broke this story about Jeffrey Epstein far before the grifters and the pundits and influencers got a hold of it.
No, I didn't break the story, but I have been covering it for about 10 years. This is before a lot of people had that much interest in it, because really the story got a lot of people excited once you actually had Jeffrey Epstein arrested for the second time, and then, of course, his so-called suicide took place. Before that, there was not all that much interest in it back in 2008, 2009, when you really had the outrageous stuff going on. And before that, there was not that much public interest in it.
Why do you think that there wasn't that much public interest? Was it just that it wasn't spicy enough, or it wasn't linked to enough people to get people to pay attention?
It wasn't being weaponized. One of the big things that happened that actually weaponized the story in the first place was, what actually caused Epstein to be arrested a second time. What caused the whole thing to happen? Well, Alex Acosta became a Trump nominee. He was the former federal prosecutor who had handled the Epstein case, and he blew the federal case against Epstein. And the Democrats and the media became very interested in the Epstein case all of a sudden after ignoring it all this time. But there had been an important prerequisite, which is that Hillary Clinton had lost the presidential election. Before Hillary Clinton lost, Epstein could not be talked about because Epstein had close connections to the Clintons. Beyond, obviously, the whole Alita Express thing, Epstein claimed to have helped co-create the Clinton Foundation, or the Clinton Global Initiative, which later becomes the Clinton Foundation. Now, whether or not you believe him or not, and Epstein told a lot of like to exaggerate, it was clear that he had some connections. He was very big in the nonprofit sector. He was good at getting guys like Bill Gates and others connected to financial institutions and to nonprofit funding. So certainly he had some level of involvement. And once the Clintons stopped being on the horizon, the Democrats felt much more comfortable talking about Epstein. And that's really the first time the story became very big.
So when the Democrats decided to all of a sudden pay attention to this, and of course it was initially because, Trump had ties to Epstein back in the 90s up until the early 2000s, prior to him banning Epstein from Mar-a-Lago for, inappropriate contact with a minor who happened to be one of the guests at Mar-a-Lago. And of course, they wanted to tie it to Trump and tie it to Trump must be on this gigantic list of international pedophiles and all this stuff. And then it became this political football. But what are we missing throughout all of this? Where's the truth, and where should people be focusing? Because I see a lot of there has got to be there, but what is there?
Well, the big question really is not just what was Epstein doing; it was who was protecting him, and that couldn't have been Trump because he was not a elected official until the end of Epstein's career. But in this Epstein's when the first time Epstein was arrested and he goes to prison in 2008, he doesn't just go to prison. He gets a private wing in the Palm Beach stockade. He doesn't just get a private wing. He gets a private wing with doors that are open. It's a great benefit when you actually are in a prison and the doors just open. The doors just let you walk in and out. He gets to hire sheriff's deputies in Palm Beach as his private security. He pays them. They call him his client, as far as client lists go. He gets to do workaways in his beachfront mansion, again, while serving time for, abusing underage girls. So this is crazy. And it gets crazier because then he gets out of prison. Florida refuses to list him as a sex offender. New York, Manhattan DA goes ahead and actually takes him down 2 notches as a sex offender from level 3 to level 1 against the recommendations of the judge and the relevant board. New Mexico takes him off the sex offender list 2 days after he gets put on it. He has a big ranch there called the Zorro Ranch. So you have prosecutors in 3 states, enforcement officials in 3 states intervening to protect Epstein. So that's not on Trump. That's not something Trump was capable of doing back then, even if he wanted to do it. There's a strong suggestion that this really came from his connection to the Clintons. The Clintons had the kind of juice to be able to go ahead and tell various prosecutors in various localities. It's not something like the CIA goes into Palm Beach or New Mexico and starts talking about, well, we want you to do this and that, and the response would be, who are you? Local prosecutors don't answer to the CIA or the Mossad or M16 or whatever. They do, however, back then answer to the Clintons. And back then, protecting Bill Clinton was a big priority because Hillary Clinton was going to be the next presidential candidate. And before that, she was Secretary of State. So they had to be able to protect Bill Clinton against any particular scandals. And the real scandal there may not even be the underage sex trafficking. That may have been part of a bigger picture, which is the Clinton Foundation was moving huge amounts of money from foreign leaders, from foreign oligarchs, into a potential presidential candidacy. And I think that is really what was more explosive than whatever Epstein was doing with underage girls.
So what I see as a common theme with this whole Jeffrey Epstein thing is he seems to be much of a power broker, brokering deals and meetings between heads of industry, celebrities, politicians. I mean, the long list of people who actually flew on his plane and attended his parties, not parties that he attended, but his own specific parties. He had multiple meetings connecting the Clintons and other industry leaders together in order to basically graft a lot of power, influence, and money within the Democrat Party and that Democrat infrastructure. And we see that throughout Hollywood. We see that throughout Florida, throughout New York. We see that all over the place. And what I see getting missed is there's the hyper focus on the sex trafficking, and I think what the average person is really getting so angry about not seeing people getting perp walked in this is that once again these are elites who are obviously a double standard in the justice system where the elites get to walk away with 0 repercussions, 0 transparency, 0 accountability. And I don't necessarily lay that on Trump as I do the people who have been, doing this shit for the past 2 decades with this guy, who have been protecting this guy for the past 2 decades. Because the Clintons do have that kind of juice.
Yeah. There's no question that people are outraged, and they should be outraged, because nothing that happened was normal. Nothing what I described was normal. Nothing about his death, supposed suicide, was normal. People are right to think that there is something going on here. But I think it's accompanied by this kind of unrealism where you think that, yes, there were all these powerful people in the government. They were doing all these sorts of things. And there's this evidence sitting here in the box and just waiting for somebody to file Freedom of Information Act or, have somebody in the DOJ just go through it. I recall when had the Clinton investigation of Hillary Clinton's emails, and it concluded with the FBI taking all the hard drives and wiping all the hard drives. Yeah. And you had the Hunter Biden hard drives, laptops in the custody of the FBI. And again, if the FBI had been the only ones to have them in custody, I'm pretty sure they would have disappeared and they would have been wiped. So I had zero expectations going in that any of that information that's still relevant, that's still explosive, would be sitting there. It's been way too long and there've been way too many people. And if that information really was explosive, we really pointed the finger at major donors, at elites, at players, at people like, say, Bill Gates, at people like former presidents, current presidents, anything like that, that information would not just be sitting there. We know that.
Well, and see, that's the other thing, is because there were members of the royal family who were implicated in dealings with Jeffrey Epstein. And Prince Andrew doesn't exactly have a clean record when it comes to, sexual escapades. So, and they, despite what people don't, for those who don't seem to understand, the royal family still has quite a bit of diplomatic influence around the world. I mean, they're the last real monarchy. However, I never expected to actually see anything. When I saw Trump make the promise, I was like, yep, this is going to be a political football. Should have kept your mouth shut, because I never expected it to be there. And one of my big criticisms as a conservative myself is I don't believe the FBI or the CIA can actually be rebuilt or fixed when it's 99% populated by leftists at an infrastructural level. As we see polls coming out of D.C. that damn near everybody worked there is not just right, left of center, but polls progressive. I'm like, how are you going to fix an institution that is so far gone that they take pride in the corruption that they're involved in? And I see that as a serious problem, and this is why I never expected to see a lot of the reveals that we're supposed to get out of the FBI or the CIA. And if there is a list, and this is another thing, Pam Bondi's saying that there's a list. The reason why people are asking for a list is because you said there was a list. You said you were going to provide the list. You said you had it on your desk. Now, when people ask for the list, now you're gaslighting them and saying, why are you asking about a list? There's no list. Maybe you should have kept your mouth shut and not said it in the first place.
You're absolutely right. They should never have been making promises that they should have known they could not keep. They shouldn't have tried to run a dog and pony show with the influencers. It was absolutely very stupid. And they should have realized that at some point you can't actually just keep teasing people. People are going to actually want something. They're going to want something big. They're not going to want the thin gruel that they're being fed. And they're going to turn on you. They're going to be very angry. And they're going to be doubly suspicious that you're involved in all of this. If they just come in and said that, well, we don't really have much. We have these files. Some of these we're probably going to have to redact. It's not very impressive. It's not all that exciting. I'm sorry. It was probably destroyed. People would have been upset. Some people would have suspected them. But, there wouldn't have been this kind of backlash. And the backlash in many cases is deserved because, again, they really set themselves up for it.
Agreed. Again, this is Daniel Greenfield. He is a conservative columnist and an investigative journalist. He is also an executive vice president of programs at David Horowitz Freedom Center. You need to follow his work and follow a lot of his writings on Jeffrey Epstein and all the stuff that people are missing. And because, once the grifter class gets attached to anything, it's more about clicks, likes, retweets, shares, and subscribership than it is about the truth. From that point. And I'm not saying that there aren't good people asking the right questions, but unfortunately a lot of people, it's the grift. And I understand why a lot of people are pissed, because I'm just pissed that I keep being gaslighted and told that it's not an issue when you made it an issue. If you make it an issue, now I have a right to say, why did you make it an issue if it's a non-issue? And I wish Trump in this regard would just shut the hell up. Like, I'm not a Trump sycophant. If you don't want people to talk about it, you should probably stop talking about it. But you have a book, sir. Where can people find your book?
It's Domestic Enemies, the Founding Fathers Fight Against the Left. It's the history of the early left in American history. And it's at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, bookstores with better taste near you.
All right. So, in regard to what we're seeing, what do you think is the most destructive thing we're seeing about this narrative regarding Epstein, either from mainstream media or what we're seeing on X among the influencer class and stuff like that?
I think what's really destructive is right now there's a ticking clock. There's a limited time for Congress to do anything. In the midterms, we could very well end up with a Democrat House, a Democrat. The Republicans will no longer enjoy a legislative majority, and right now a lot of effort is being squandered and wasted focused on this stuff, which is not going to go anywhere. If the umpteenth hearings actually produce something, I'd be excited, but I've been around long enough. At this point, everybody's been around long enough to know the congressional hearings don't actually accomplish anything. What they do is waste precious time that could actually be focused on achieving the president's agenda, achieving actual real change before the Democrats come in.
The one thing that you do, and this is where I agree with Thomas Massey, the one thing that you do get out of a congressional open hearing is the inability for leadership to control what questions are asked, because each member can go ahead and ask their question, and it's almost impossible to filter out all members during a congressional hearing. However, it more often than not becomes a fundraising campaign. And that is my major criticism, is that I find them to be wholly unproductive the majority of the time because they don't turn out results or anything actionable. And you never see transparency or accountability come out of these, like real transparency. And you never see real accountability come out of any of this. I'm beginning to just not care at this point. I don't think I'm going to see a lot. I don't think I'm going to see anything productive, and I am worried about the midterms. And the reason I'm worried about the midterms is because I see a lot of the rhetoric becoming counterproductive, and I saw Trump gain a lot of votes that the GOP never would have gotten with any other candidate, and I don't see us building up the infrastructure to capitalize on those new voting demographics with young men, Hispanic men, black men, with younger generations. I see us making the mistake of thinking that we can just lackadaisically walk into 2026 when Trump is not at the top of the ticket to help all these boats rise.
And there hasn't been much of a plan to actually conserve these votes, to actually service these demographics, to actually show them there's a reason you voted for us. Now we're giving you something. We're doing something for you. That has not really happened in a meaningful way. And that's a major problem because, yes, there is this major split between the general Republican demographic and the Trump demographic. And I don't think the two have ever meshed very well. And right now, a lot of people mistook this groundswell of support. In many cases, it was really a vote against all the things that the Biden administration has been doing, the general sense that a lot of young men have been kicked in the teeth, and that they were actually willing to look at some sort of other option. But it doesn't mean that you can just take them for granted.
I completely agree. I've often said that there is. I ran for office back in the 2022 cycle. I've worked in politics on campaigns and as a consultant, as a political strategist. And one of the things that I have consistently said through my trips back and forth to D.C. is that there is an entire class of people who are surfers. They ride whatever wave they can ride to get into office. They will say whatever they need to say to get the seat that they want to be in. And as soon as it is no longer convenient to ride that wave, they will hop off and ride the next wave. And right coming into the midterms, especially if Trump does not keep a decent majority, you're going to see I'd say 60% of the people who rode the Trump train to get into office, they are going to jump off that wave as soon as possible. And all of a sudden, Trump is going to become persona non grata because a lot of the stuff that he ran on is contradictory to the machine that operates within the Beltway of people who have this universalist needing to legislate everything from the top down mentality.
Absolutely. You've got it. He's going to get it from both sides. He's already getting it from both sides. There are the old school Republicans, and there's some people who want to be more MAGA than Trump, and there are people who generally are grifters and like to stir things up. And we're heading for a perfect storm because we're now looking at a divided party going into the midterms. The Democrats are more likely to become a united party at this point. And when you have a united going up against divided, united tends to win.
That's the big thing. We say it a lot on this show. My co-host says it all the time. Our superpower is snatching defeat from the jaws of victory, and Republicans will agree on 9 out of 10 things and kill each each other over the thing we disagree on before we accomplish the 9 things we agree on. And the Democrats are exactly the opposite. They will disagree on 1 out of 10 things, and they will leave that one thing till the end after they've completely whooped us on the other 9 things. And that has been the big thing. Like, you can get every Democrat to agree never vote a Republican. You can't get every Republican to agree not to vote a Democrat.
Yeah, absolutely. The Democrats are mission focused. The Republicans are not. So the Republicans are in it for personality. Some of them are just in it for servicing very narrow donor agendas, and some of them are just out there to get attention any way they can. We've seen the emergence of a squad within the Republican Party, one that is really focused on building its own brand, not on actually fulfilling any kind of agenda.
Yeah, I've said that too. I'm glad you said it. There are people within the Republican Party who are perfectly happy to be the AOC and Ilhan Omar and Ayanna Pressley of the GOP, and they're like, yeah, now we have our own squad. I'm like, that is not a freaking good thing. That is not a good thing. I don't want performative politicians. I want politicians who actually fight. So this is where I say I am not in line with the old school neocon, we need to have decorum over good legislation. And I'm also not in line with I just want me a good conservative fighter who's going to stand up and say the shit that I want to be said, even if they don't get anything done. Because I don't see that as productive either. If you're going to fight, it needs to be like the founding fathers. Have duels on the House floor, beat the crap out of each other with canes, but actually get shit done. Because that's what the vast majority of American people want. That's the reason why Congress has such a low approval rating. Like, what are they, in single digits right now? I think last I saw it was 8%.
Yeah. And it's only getting worse because Congress is fundamentally broken. They're incapable of getting anything done. And that is all that matters. Most people actually want you to get things done. The percentage of people on Twitter, on X, who want you to say something is tiny compared to the percentage of people in your own district who have a set of things they want from you.
Yeah. I mean, I saw it firsthand. We're discussing immigration policy, and out of all the policies that we lined out collectively between me and like 3 other candidates running for Congress, the whole conversation somehow devolved to, well, I'm going to vote for whoever says illegal aliens because we need to call it like it is. And I'm like, I don't give a shit if you call them purple people eaters. Deport them. Is it like, do you care what I call them if I deport them? That's the thing that Trump, he gained Hispanic voters and black men on immigration, on avoiding World War III and some semblance of rational, level-headed foreign policy, fixing the economics, bringing back jobs, manufacturing, safe communities, things that are real kitchen table issues. And to his credit for shutting down the border, stopping illegal entries and stuff like that, I'm sorry, I don't see Obama-level deportations yet, and I need to see Obama-level deportations. I want to see millions. I don't care if you got to load them in catapults and kick them over back over the wall like a Acme rocket or something, like Wile E. Coyote. But something needs to give. It's got to give, right?
It is. It's absolutely urgent. And we keep saying over and over again that for the moment, Democrats have been able to obstruct policy after policy after policy. And as long as they actually make it this much more difficult, virtue signaling alone is not going to fix that. You actually have to perform.
Would you? I've long had this premise that when Democrats come to the table, so you have 2 options when you want to negotiate something, right? You either both come to the table in good faith with, here's something that we think you'll accept, and you offer something you think we'll accept, and then we haggle from there over the fine line details. Or you come to the table in bad faith, which means you come with 100% of what you want, and I come with 100% of what I want, and then we beat each other down until we come to a compromise there. The Democrats come to the table in bad faith with 100% of what they want all the time, and we come to the table with what we think they'll accept, and then they beat us back from there. So we get 40% of what they want, or 40% of what we want, and they get 60% of what we want. We wonder why the progressive machine continues to go forward election cycle after election cycle, no matter who happens to be in office.
Yeah, well, Republicans tend to have a lot of explanations for why they can't do things. Democrats really have explanations for why they can't do things. They have a plan to get things done anyway, anyhow, any way they can do it. If they can't do it one way, they'll do it another way. They'll do it through a back door. One of the things that's happening now is this fight over what's considered a federal public benefit, and it harkens back to Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton agreed to a Republican proposal to actually get immigrants off welfare. But what he went ahead was he then went ahead and reclassified a whole bunch of welfare as not being a federal public benefit. So they always find a way to get things done. Republicans find excuses for not getting things done because they don't really want to get things done in many cases. In other cases, they've had all this experience, and what experience has taught them is how they can not get things done. How they can find excuses for not getting things done, how nothing gets done anyway. They have a lot of stories about how nothing really gets done anyway. And once you have people with a lot of stories about how nothing gets done, well, you need to replace them with people who actually believe in getting things done.
I'm glad you said it right there. We got Daniel Greenfield giving us the scoop on everything inside DC and the Jeffrey Epstein files, the stuff you really should be paying attention to. Go buy his book, Domestic Enemies. Please support authors and the guests we have on this show. They're giving you the knowledge you desperately need outside the griftery machine we see so prevalent online and in DC and the Beltway. And up next, we have Dan Nash coming on. See you after the break. Thank you for coming on, sir.
Thank you.
United We Stand, A Marine's Fight. Written by Julian Acciard. I wrote this book to decipher through the tumultuous political dialogue and political gangbanging we see on both sides of the aisle between politicians, activists, influencers, and pundits, and get down to brass tacks solutions in order to save our republic. Again, United We Stand, A Marine's Fight, written by Julian Acciard. You can purchase the book on Amazon, Kindle, and Barnes & Noble.
Would you rather spend time with family and friends in the pool or at the barbecue rather than landscaping your yard? Well, Augusta Lawn Care is here to help you with all of your landscaping needs. Proudly serving southern New Hampshire, we handle everything. Weekly mowing, spring and fall cleanups, bush trimming, mulch installs, lawn treatments, aeration, dethatching, and even snow plowing and salting when the dreaded winter hits. Call Augusta Lawn Care today and let your yard be the best looking yard on the block. Call 603-331-4768. Augusta Lawn Care, locally owned, professionally done. Call 603-331-4678 or visit us online at AugustaLawnCareServices.com/Londonderry. That's AugustaLawnCareServices.com/Londonderry.
This could be the moment we've been waiting for, the chance to feel alive.
Sometimes we forget we live in one of the most beautiful states in the country. This summer, vacation right here and discover your new.
This is where it all begins. This is where it all begins.
Welcome back to Granite State Live. Up next, For this segment, we have Dan Nash exposing overlooked truths and real solutions in American human trafficking. He is the founder of the Human Trafficking Training Center. Dan Nash is he was a retired Missouri State Trooper, 27-year career, 24 years of which he spent on the Narcotics Vice Unit. Thank you for being on the show tonight.
Thank you, sir. I'm happy to be here.
So, why is the quote unquote missing kids narrative, while important, why is it continuously overshadow the vast majority of what we should be talking about when it comes to human trafficking? Why is this the misnomer that everyone gloms onto?
Well, missing kids are super important, right? I mean, anytime we have, underage folks that are, victims of crime, we want to be all over that. We want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to do that. But when you look at human trafficking in America, you're talking 2/3 to 3/4 of all human trafficking victims in America are actually just adult females. And nobody really ever talks about that.
So I understand why everybody harps on, kids. I have three kids. So I understand, because it pulls on your heartstrings, right? Because they're innocent.
100%.
And we attach to that. But when the numbers are showing that this is a much bigger issue, and we're only looking at it through a myopic lens, what are we missing? What are we overall missing that we should be paying attention to here?
So I think we're missing a couple of different things. One thing is most people don't understand that again, up to 3/4 of trafficking victims in America are adults. They're adult females. We think that human trafficking is like international. It's all these international issues, people coming here, brought here from other countries that are being trafficked. Does that happen? 100%. Is it a big deal that our border is now secure and we don't have unaccompanied minors coming across it and vulnerable adults coming across it? 100%. Does that help trafficking in America? Yes, it does. But most trafficking victims in America are adult females, and they're American citizens. And I think if we're really going to stop human trafficking, we have to understand all the different versions, and we have to understand where most of the victims are coming from. And they're coming from towns and cities right here in our country.
What are you seeing? How are these people getting into human trafficking? How do they become victims? What is the most prevalent source?
So it's really all about vulnerabilities, right? There's lots of different things that can be vulnerabilities. Poverty can be a vulnerability. Coming from a broken home can be a vulnerability. Being physically abused, sexually abused, lots of different things can be vulnerabilities. All traffickers do is find the vulnerabilities, exploit those vulnerabilities, and then they simply try to use these vulnerabilities to force these people into criminal activity where they can make money. Typically what we see is prostitution, right? Some 90 to 94% of all prostitution is trafficking. The idea that people are picking to be prostitutes and doing this on their own is really kind of a fallacy. Does that sometimes happen? Well, yeah, but in the most part, it's not. Somebody is forcing them to do that, or they're forcing them into forced labor, or they're forcing them into other types of criminal activity. Fraud, drug distribution, forgeries, other things like that. For the traffickers, it's simply about money.
So that actually tracks back to something that actually happened here in New Hampshire. We just had a ring of massage parlors giving explicit services across the state being shut down for being connected with human trafficking, coming out of a ring out of New York. Quote unquote Asian massage parlors in New Hampshire. And then, what we're seeing coming out of the DCYF cases in New Hampshire, there has been quite a few kids who have gone missing who they fall off the roster, disappear, end up being vulnerable, whether it's through transition from one facility to another, especially during COVID. And it turns out that they end up in prostitution. They end up in human trafficking. They end up just disappearing off the rosters. First they get hooked on drugs, then it's the, once you're vulnerable, they can get you hooked on anything.
Yeah, so both of those are really big problems in America. Children that are in the foster care industry, children that are runaways, those kinds of things, super vulnerable to being trafficked. Stats are basically 1 out of 6 kids that are from the foster care industry end up being trafficked. 1 out of 5 runaways end up being trafficked. Super, super vulnerable. The illicit massage business industry in America is actually the largest of all, or the fastest growing, quickest growing of all human trafficking here in the United States. And that's typically Chinese organized crime, and that's a real problem. And you're talking about it being out of New York, 100%. Flushing, New York is kind of the epicenter in America of this illicit massage business all across America.
So what are the we see a lot of sensationalized statistics and a lot of politicized stories. What harm is that doing to the actual fight itself?
It's great harm. So, like, for example, most people in America really think that human trafficking is like the movie Taken or Sound of Freedom, and that's really just not true. The idea that somebody's going to kidnap your daughter or your son off the Target parking lot and traffic them is just not what we see in the United States. Very, very, very rare is anybody kidnapped like that in America. That's not what happens. They find the vulnerabilities, they exploit those vulnerabilities, and then they get these people into positions where they're being forced to commit criminal activity so the trafficker can make money. But the idea that somebody's going to kidnap us or kidnap our kid is just not what we see. In fact, 70% of all juvenile abductions in America are your ex. They're your ex-husband or your ex-wife. So that's typically where you're going to look at if you're looking for an abduction scenario.
Wow, that is well, that's depressing. So what are some of the proven methods for law enforcement and health professionals to truly combat the human trafficking in today's society? Are we making advancements? Are we having a larger effect?
The answer to that is mixed. Here is probably one of the other big fallacies in America, and that is that law enforcement is trained in human trafficking, and that is completely far from the truth. Only about 17% of law enforcement in America have any human trafficking training whatsoever, and if we look at skills-based training, which is what law enforcement really needs to be effective, we're talking 8%. And most people think that, that's just the small police departments, that's the small sheriff's departments, they're the ones that maybe don't have that trafficking. But that's absolutely not true. It's the largest departments just as much as the smallest departments. I'll give you an example. And I'm just using these examples because they're really big agencies that everybody would know. The FBI, for example, huge agency, multi-million-dollar a year budget, tens of thousands of officers. They get zero training in the FBI Academy on human trafficking. None, not 1 minute. U.S. Marshals, none. DEA, none. Customs and Border Patrol, none. We're not training our officers. I never had training as a Missouri State Trooper until later in my career. We just don't get the training. If we don't get the training, how are we going to be expected to work and investigate human trafficking? And that's why we're so busy at the Human Trafficking Training Center, because that's what we do, is provide law enforcement with that training. And once that happens, it's immediate. Last year, we did 59 trainings in 28 states, taught just shy of 7,000 police officers. They left that training and found 587 trafficking victims. The quickest was 5 hours and 14 minutes. The youngest was 11. Happens very, very quickly once they're trained.
All right, so that was stark and something that caught me by surprise. You just said the Customs and Border Patrol is not trained in human trafficking, despite what is happening at our southern border specifically, with the amount of trafficking that comes across? That is insane to me.
They do not get that.
Wow. So that talk about sending your troops onto the battlefield without the tools in their tool belt.
Yeah, and it's like I said, it's federal agencies, it's state police agencies, it's large agencies, it's small agencies, it's medium-sized agencies. It's across the board. We are just not trained in human trafficking. And to me, it's kind of like looking for a drunk driver. How do you expect the police to arrest a drunk driver if they don't know what a drunk driver looks like driving down the road, and they don't know how to handle a drunk driver once they stop that drunk driver, right? You're not going to arrest drunk drivers. It's the same with trafficking. If they don't know what to do, they won't get anything accomplished.
I got to say, the other surprise that came out of that, when you said that I am no fan of the FBI, and I have never been a fan of the FBI as a ridiculously politically corrupt organization throughout their entire history. However, they're supposed to be dealing with interstate crime. You would think that they would be the ones that have at least some people trained in human trafficking. To hear that is like, we're failing our American citizens here.
We are, and I've had FBI agents that come to our training, right? And I've had them in at least 4 states that I can think of. And these are people that are actually assigned and working human trafficking cases. And they literally told me, this is the first time I've ever had any human trafficking training, and I'm supposed to be working these cases, and I have no idea what I'm doing.
All right, so that, you heard that right here. All right, I don't know how we have law enforcement agencies in this country, with this being such a prevalent issue, that are not trained, especially the people who are on the front lines, supposed to be dealing with it on a daily basis and investigating these cases. Again, this is Dan Nash. He is the founder of the Human Trafficking Training Center. You need to be supporting what he does. You need to be looking at what he does. And if you're in law enforcement and you deal with human trafficking, even a small bit, you need to be getting trained. You need to have the tools in your tool belt to do the job properly. Another question that I happen to have: what are some of the challenges that are being faced by and overlooked by adult survivors, especially, American women? And how do we need to change the discourse in the way that we approach this?
So I think when it comes to finding trafficking victims and helping them, I think there's, again, a misconception that these are just people that have made poor life decisions or bad choices in life, and they've got addicted to drugs and alcohol, or they've done this or they've done that. And that's typically not what we find. We find that, yes, they have vulnerabilities, but typically those vulnerabilities were because of nothing that they did. Maybe they were abused when they were a kid. They were physically or sexually abused, or they grew up in poverty or whatever, and then they have these vulnerabilities. If we do not get these victim services and get them all this stuff that they need, counseling, therapy, drug rehab, all this different stuff, the chances of them going back to being trafficked again is like 70%. So if we don't get them into services and do these things to help them, they literally go right back. And then that just drains our system, because it drains our criminal justice system. It drains the medical system. It drains social services. It drains everything. So we are way better off when we can find them, have law enforcement find them, arrest that trafficker, and then get those victims into the services and get them into a good, healthy place so they can thrive in society. That's better for them. It's cheaper for us. It's just a win-win for everybody.
So what makes, well, one, I have 2 questions here. What got you into this? So there's always an origin story that makes warriors walk onto the battlefield and don their armor. What's yours? And how is the Human Trafficking Training Center leading the paradigm shift and how we're fighting trafficking in our own communities, training methodologies, so on and so forth?
I got into this because I was a young detective, and I had a situation where I thought some prostitution activity was taking place. We'd had some complaints about it in this area, and I ended up contacting a lady who was about 20 years old, and she was with a 40-year-old male on a parking lot. I had no idea what to do. I didn't understand PTSD. I didn't understand trauma bonding. I didn't understand trafficking. We didn't even call it trafficking back in late 90s. And I tried to do what I thought was the best way to handle the situation. I was completely unsuccessful. She was very belligerent and uncooperative and did not do anything to me. And I finally just said, fine, you're free to go. And off they went. 2 months later, she killed herself in a bathtub in a hotel, and she left behind a 1-year-old little boy. And I literally was like, I had her. And she was being trafficked by that guy. But I literally had her in the palm of my hand. I did not know what to do. I did not help her. I did not do anything. And my agency's motto was service and protection. And I'm like, I didn't serve her, and I sure as hell didn't protect her. So I was like, we've got to do something different, because I never wanted to look myself in the mirror again and think, I let somebody down like that again. So it became kind of a mission for me to figure this stuff out. And literally after 10 or 12 years of failure after failure after failure after failure, I finally started figuring a few things out here and a few things out there. And eventually I ended up here trying to teach other law enforcement officers so that they don't have to go through the failures and the stuff that I went through.
Wow. Can you explain, you created this special victims methodology. Can you explain that?
So what that is a way that we created to be much more successful in trying to communicate with a trafficking victim. A traditional law enforcement interview has a success rate of about 6 to 7%. Very few of these victims are going to disclose that they're being trafficked. That's just not what they do. It's just reality. So we've been trying to do that for 50 years. So literally for years and years and years, I was like, there's got to be a different way to do this. There's got to be a more successful way to do this. So after failure and failure and failure and failure, we eventually started figuring out some ways to be more successful. And now we've been able to come up with the special victims methodology, which is what we teach law enforcement today all across America. I taught it today in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And it's a way for us to get about a 50% disclosure rate from a trafficking victim versus a 6 to 7% disclosure rate, which is a game changer because now we're able to identify traffickers, arrest traffickers, and we're able to get victims into the services that they need so they can get healthy.
More to the illicit massage business, which obviously just hit New Hampshire and is popping up all over the country and becoming such a common issue. You created the 4 corner strategy for investigating it. Can you explain that?
So the illicit massage business industry was always a real kind of a thorn in my side, so to speak, because I could not figure those things out, and I failed and failed for years. And law enforcement across the country has failed. That's why now there's 19,000 illicit massage businesses in the United States, worth about $5 billion a year. That's about what they make. There are so many illicit massage businesses in California and New York. There are more of those than there are Starbucks and McDonald's combined. It's crazy the amount of they're everywhere now, right? So we created this strategy of going after these illicit massage businesses, and it's been uber successful. We are teaching law enforcement how to go after these, how to get all the key players, how to shut the business down, and how to help all the victims. And when we do that, again, it's a win-win for everybody. We're stopping Chinese organized crime, we're helping victims, and we're arresting traffickers.
Again, everybody, this is Dan Nash. He is the founder of Human Trafficking and Training Center. You should be paying attention to what he is doing, and if you're in law enforcement, you should be reaching out so you can get trained in how to stop this epidemic that is happening in the United States. We need to protect the women and minors who are involved in this perverse industry. I mean, without cursing, I can't figure out any a worse way to describe it. What are some of the realities versus myths besides just the age that we should be picking up on?
So typically people ask me all the time, like, what should I be looking for? What is the easiest thing to spot? What is the easiest thing to see? And there's things like control, somebody that's controlling somebody that's not in control of their own money or their own travel or things like that. Those are pretty generic things, but yeah, those are things that we look for. We teach law enforcement about specific tattoos that they should be looking for, because in the trafficking world, traffickers will put specific tattoos on their victims. Traffickers themselves may have specific tattoos that are shining a light that they are a trafficker. They do this all the time. So we teach law enforcement those things. Probably the easiest thing for the general public to see is prostitution. When you're driving around your town and you have prostitution taking place on a specific street, over 90% of that is trafficking. When you're driving to work and you're dropping off your dry cleaning and you see that illicit massage business, and everybody that's listening to this knows where a illicit massage business is. We all do that, right? And we've joked about them and we've laughed about them. But it's not joking to those girls that are being trafficked in those places. It's not joking to them. When you see one of those, report it to the police. Let the police know that you see this in your neighborhood and that you're concerned about it, right? So they can investigate it. Those things are very easy for us to see, and we can see those every single day wherever we live.
How can we change the national dialogue to be more than just a political football? I mean, because the only time anybody at the national level, whether it's, pundits, influencers, politicians themselves, want to discuss this is if they can lambaste the other side with it. They can use it as a political football or something to play political gangbanging with.
Well, I think one thing that we need to do, and I'm hoping that this administration will do that, is you cannot look to anybody and say, all right, that person is our leader in human trafficking. That person is leading the way in human trafficking, or that particular agency is leading the way in human trafficking. That's not the way it is. Everybody's kind of working in their own little silos. You have certain states or certain departments that are doing way better than others. Other states and other departments aren't doing anything. But as a national, across the United States program or initiative, we don't have anything like that. Everybody's just kind of like on their own, doing their own thing. We have no national leadership that we can look to and say, that is our human trafficking czar. That is the person that's leading the way. We have nothing like that in America.
So that's something that I didn't know, and that's incredibly concerning, but I can't say it's a surprise based on what you told me about the Border Patrol and the FBI. But and from a military tactic, you have generals, you have commanders, you have your majors, your colonels, so on and so forth. You have your chain of command. You have your missions coming from above, and then you have small unit leadership executing the mission. If you do not have somebody who is directing the mission from the top and coalescing some sort of interagency communication so everybody's working together and seems to be on the same page of trying to solve this, how are we ever going to see measurable difference in the human trafficking in the United States?
I agree, and I get calls weekly from governor's offices, from attorney general's offices, from different people across the country going, man, we need to be doing something about this. What should we be doing, right? We need training. We need this. We need that. But we still don't have that person that's leading the way that's doing this. I mean, I'm traveling all across the country trying to do my part, but we don't have that leadership of somebody saying, okay, this is our plan, and this is what we're going to do, and we're going to get results from this, because it's results. If we're just going to get lip service, then I'm not really interested. I want to see results. That's why our training issues results, right? I want to see that. And when we do that, then I think that is when we will finally start turning the corner on human trafficking. It's the second largest criminal enterprise in the world. Only drug trafficking makes more money right now than human trafficking, and it's gaining on drug trafficking. Some estimates are within 20 years it will pass drug trafficking. We need to get on this now.
All right, well, there you have it, Trump administration. You need to get on the ball, and I would suggest contacting Dan Nash, the founder of the Human Trafficking Training Center, and possibly making him your human trafficking czar, so we can actually crack down on this, seeing as you're the professional who's actually going out there training and creating the methodologies to capture this and actually protect these young women and children who are involved in this. I don't see anybody else more qualified to take the position. So, Trump, if you want to solve this, this is your guy for the job. How about making a phone call? Thank you so much for coming on. As depressing as this topic is, my mind is blown at what we've learned this segment. Tell people where they can contact you and how they can support your work, please.
You can contact us at our website, which is humantraffickingtrainingcenter.com. Altogether, humantraffickingtrainingcenter.com. From there, you can see where our trainings are. You can see how you can support us. You can contact me directly from there, and we would love to hear from you.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you for coming on, and I would like to have you come back on soon because I don't think this is a problem that's going to be going away anytime soon. That's the end of the segment. Up next, we're going to have another fantastic guest for you. We have Salvador Litvak, a Jewish comedian who is going to be he's going to have us laughing. I'm ready. I'm wearing a diaper, so if I pee myself laughing right now, I don't embarrass myself on air. Come up next after the break. We'll see you in a minute. United We Stand, A Marine's Fight, written by Julian Acciard. I wrote this book to decipher through the tumultuous political dialogue and political gangbanging we see on both sides of the aisle between politicians, activists, influencers, and pundits, and get down to brass tacks solutions in order to save our republic. Again, United We Stand, A Marine's Fight, written by Julian Acciard. You can purchase the book on Amazon, Kindle, and Barnes & Noble.
Would you rather spend time with family and friends in the pool or at the barbecue rather than landscaping your yard? Well, Augusta Lawn Care is here to help you with all of your landscaping needs. Proudly serving southern New Hampshire, we handle everything. Weekly mowing, spring and fall cleanups, bush trimming, mulch installs, lawn treatments, aeration, dethatching, and even snow plowing and salting when the dreaded winter hits. Call Augusta Lawn Care today and let your yard be the best looking yard on the block. Call 603-331-4768. Augusta Lawn Care, locally owned, professionally done. Call 603-331-4678 or visit us online at AugustaLawnCareServices.com/Londonderry. That's AugustaLawnCareServices.com/Londonderry.
New Hampshire Republican Governor Kelly Ayotte has been making a lot of noise about how she's funding education. The Republican budget she just signed provides more money for education than ever before. She even bragged the other day that New Hampshire is top 10 in the country when it comes to funding our children's education, as if giving money to school systems has anything to do with learning. If you look at the math, and if you got schooled in New Hampshire, the odds are good it's not your best subject. It's the exact opposite. The more money we throw at schools, the less kids learn. We're committed to wasting money on an experiment that failed, unless wasting money to drive parents to homeschool their kids was the goal. We prefer to pick on Democrats, lower hanging fruit and all that, but our rhetorical woodshed doesn't discriminate. If that sounds refreshing, you need to check us out. This is Steve McDonald for Granite Rock, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
This could be the moment we've been waiting for, the chance to feel alive.
Sometimes we forget we live in one of the most beautiful states in the country. This summer, vacation right here and discover your new.
This is where it all begins. This is where it all begins.
All right, welcome back to Granite State Live. We're rocking out in studio and ready for our next guest. We got Salvador Litvak, author of Let My People Laugh, Greatest Jewish Jokes of All Time, here to add some levity in a world of constant Jewspiracies and crazy people spinning down the rabbit hole about how apparently the Jews run the world once again. You know, we're just going to repeat the same shit we did, like, I don't know. Didn't we do that once? Wasn't there a guy with a weird mustache across the sea that we kind of kicked his ass? He had some Jewspiracies too, didn't he? Yeah.
Yes, he did.
Thank you for coming on the show, sir.
Good to be with you. Thanks for having me.
So you have Guns N' Moses, a new film spotlighting Jews and Second Amendment rights and rising anti-Semitism. I can't tell you how glad I am to have you on. I am a constant critic of Jewspiracy theories. I think they're comical, and they seem to be passed around among the people with no accolades, no success, no nothing to their life to glom onto, and they're all incredibly angry and they're it's really easy to be angry when you're all fighting over the last two brain cells.
Exactly. It's a story as old as the hills, looking for a scapegoat for all their problems. And in every generation, they have a new story about why the Jews are bad. Either we keep to ourselves, and so that's the problem, or we're trying to enter the culture, and that's the problem. We don't have enough money. We have too much money. We don't have enough power. We have too much power. And what's amazing is how many intelligent people, otherwise intelligent people, are so easily manipulated with these lies. I mean, one of the funniest things of all is to call Israel a colonizer. Anybody who has ever looked at a map of the Middle East can see how ridiculous that story is. Israel's a tiny sliver of a country surrounded by 47 countries that have been colonized by radical political Islam. And all the Israelis want to do is just live and get along. Here in America, the danger to Jews. I'm an Orthodox Jew, and I'm not wearing my movie hat. I just walk around in a kippah. That's to say, a visible Jew. And we've been aware about the danger to the Jewish community for quite a while. And long before October 7th, I joined an organization called Magen Am. In Hebrew, that means Shield of the Nation, that trains and licenses regular guys like me to carry a firearm because the danger is real. And please God, we should never need such skills. But if we do, we will not be a soft target. And in our movie, Guns N' Moses, which is an action thriller, it's not a documentary, it's not an issue movie per se, but it's extraordinary how relevant and ripped from the headlines it's become. But in the movie, a rabbi whose synagogue is attacked violently, and then there's a murder and a conspiracy to solve, and as the danger level mounts, he goes through real firearms training and learns how to protect his family and his community. But, in most movies, when that happens, they put a few tin cans on a fence. 15 seconds later, the guy can shoot. And anyone who's actually learned to shoot in the real world knows how difficult it is and how unrealistic that usual movie treatment is. And in our film, Guns N' Moses, our star, Mark Feuerstein, goes through real training. And then the other stars, just do such a good job in the movie. Christopher Lloyd, Neil McDonough, Dermot Mulroney. What I can promise people is a very entertaining thrill ride.
Neil McDonough is quickly becoming one of my favorite actors with Angel Studios. I just watched Homestead, and now I watched Last Rodeo, and I've been a big fan of him for years for coming out with starring in absolutely fantastic works. I am a massive Second Amendment supporter. As a matter of fact, a friend of mine, shout out to Maj Touré, runs Black Guns Matter, goes all over the country teaching people who live in the inner city how to protect themselves as well. I think a polite society is a armed society. When you can't take advantage of people, all of a sudden everybody starts to use their manners. I find we live in a world full of people who pop off at the mouth or like to start stuff because they never got popped in the mouth as a kid. Maybe we need to bring back pugilistics in school. But so give me. It's become so popular to spin down the Jewspiracy rabbit hole. Recently, and we watched Candace Owens do it. We watched Tucker Carlson do it and stuff. And I work in a lot of black issues, and like with a lot of Jewish issues, there's always this undertone of it's the blacks, it's the Jews, and I'm sitting there going, no, it's certain people, Marxists, who happen to be Jewish. But they're not Marxists because they're Jews. If you're a real Marxist,
quite the contrary.
Yeah. If you're a real Marxist, being a Marxist takes precedent over everything else. Your Judaism, your race, your ethnicity, everything becomes secondary to being a Marxist. If you're a Jew, an actual practicing Orthodox Jew, your Judaism comes prior to any ideological other centers.
Exactly. And I think Jews and Christians, while we disagree on certain fundamental ideas, we have so much more in common with each other that we prize the Judeo-Christian values that this country was founded on. And those are eternal values. They're not subject to the whim of every passing decade and every generation, where they have the new cause du jour. The people who are backing, globalize the Intifada and Queers for Palestine crowd, etc. They're not thinking through what it is that they're saying and who they're backing. I mean, these terrorists who are hell bent on murdering Jews because they don't think that Israel should exist at all. It's ridiculous. But if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. It's an old saying. And so, yes, these people will fall into these thought patterns that often have the scapegoat. I mean, this guy in New York City, the Democrat candidate for mayor, Mamdani, this is a disaster brewing. I can only pray to God that this guy's not going to get elected, because this would be so bad for the Big Apple, such a great city. But this guy will ruin everything. I mean, he's already talking about how he's going to spend other people's money until there's no money, and then he's going to have to consolidate control. I mean, it's the classic story of a communist: promise everything, and then when you can't deliver anything, just kill all your opponents. I don't know how far it's going to go. A mayor of New York is not going to kill opponents, I don't think. But the story makes no sense that he's telling.
And I do want to say it. I just said it for the Jews. So for people who are questioning my intellectual consistency, yes, Mamdani is a Marxist first. He is an Islamist second. That doesn't mean he cannot make them work in tandem. It just means ideologically one comes before the other. And that goes for the guy in Minneapolis who's running for mayor as well, Fryer, who I believe just won his primary, and he's getting the Democratic nod. I don't understand why this is something that people want in the United States. Have we not watched enough Marxist societies collapse around the world to understand how, one, repugnant to the Constitution this ideology is? Two, how overtly destructive of everything socially, infrastructurally, and economically within a country that it literally destroys the soul.
Every time it's been tried. Every time it's been tried. They make all these promises and everyone's going to be equal. And then, lo and behold, some are more equal than others. The ones who join the party and get the handouts. And it's really it's always a power grab. It always becomes a power grab. And as for, these colleges and how crazy they've become, the anti-Semitism is just one example. But it's a bought and paid for phenomenon. That this money that's come in from various sources, but especially from Mideast money, where a big part of the Arab studies departments and the intersectional philosophy that takes root in the college is going to be speaking against the Jews, that's for sure. But it's also just speaking against America. I mean, parents are paying $100,000 a year for their kid to go to this allegedly elite institution to learn that America sucks. America's bad. America's going in the wrong direction. America is racist. America is sexist. And it's so demoralizing to the young generation of this country. And that's by design. To demoralize the young people of a country weakens that country and enables these foreign sources of money to acquire more power, in the international scene at the expense of American strength.
I am I'm an equal opportunity excoriator, and I always make
well done.
I always make the preface that you can have valid criticisms of Bibi Netanyahu and his foreign policy. You can have valid criticism of the Israeli government and how it operates. You can have valid criticism of the American government. I spend all damn day criticizing the American government and politicians across the aisle, but on my own side of the aisle. I don't care if you're wrong, you're wrong. If you're right, you're right. And I'm willing to give credit to anybody who gets anything right. And the problem that I always see is it starts out with a little bit of valid criticism and a little bit of truth. You can criticize the influence of AIPAC, but it does not mean that Jews are running the United States. The reason AIPAC has the outsized influence that it does is because a lot of Republicans, evangelical Republicans, see kinship with Jews.
Yeah.
Because we are Zionists, much of the evangelical right are Zionists, which means we do believe in the homeland. We do believe in the Holy Land. So it's less that AIPAC has the ability to wield so much money and more that there is an ideological agreement that is happening here. And that doesn't mean that Jews are running everything and are secretly plotting to take over the world, but it means that you can't offhand can make the conclusion that everybody's interests are conspiratorial. Not 15 million Jews are not in on a giant conspiracy.
That's for sure. And if we are, we're not doing a very good job of running things because it's not going so well for us. No, I mean, exactly. Why would a conspiracy theory ever work? Because there's some truth in it, because there's some kernel of truth to build around. But then when you start laying on the lies, the thing can spin out of control in so many directions, and it does. And it does.
You have, so I gotta remind people, he's got a book. Aside of the jokes, aside of everything, he's got a book. Let My People Laugh, the greatest Jewish jokes of all time. All right, so because you're a comedian, you got to lay a few on us, because we were just talking at the beginning of the show about how American comedy, cinema, and music has just gone the way of the wayside, and we're not allowed to laugh anymore. So I'm wearing my adult diaper. I'm ready for it. Go ahead.
Well, here's one. A rabbi and a Hindu priest and a politician. They're buddies. They go hiking. They're planning to, stay in some kind of a camping shelter, but they get lost. Night is falling. What are we going to do? They see a farmhouse. They go, they knock on the door. They ask if they can spend the night. The farmer says, it's no problem, but my guest room is quite small. It has 2 beds. One of you is going to have to sleep in the barn. The Hindu priest says, it's no problem. I will take the barn. The rabbi and the politician are settling down for the night, and then there's a knock on the door. It's the Hindu priest, and he says, my brothers, I'm sorry. There's a cow in the barn. I can't sleep beside this holy animal. The rabbi says, guys, no problem. I'll take the barn. The Hindu priest and the politician are settling down for the night. There's a knock on the door. It's the rabbi. He says, there's a pig in the barn. I can't sleep beside the filthy animal. The politician says, let it be remembered that I sacrificed my comfort for the greater good. And off he goes to the barn. The rabbi and the Hindu priest are settling down for the evening. There's a knock on the door. They open it. It's the cow and the pig.
Oh, God. That's good. That's good. I can't. I absolutely. I despise politicians. I know so many. I know so many politicians. I know so many politicians, but you know what? I'm absolutely sure that cows and pigs will feel grieved by having to spend a night with a politician. I mean, shit. What is it? Politicians are ranked below lawyers and just above lawyers and used car salesmen as the least trustworthy job in America. I would say weathermen should also be up there. Okay. There's no way you can be wrong.
I live in California. These guys have such a nothing job. It's the same thing every day.
I'm absolutely sure being I'm absolutely sure being a weatherman means you get to go to school and just get drunk every single day, because you don't have to be right about shit. You can be wrong on everything.
No.
Like,
do you have to go to school at all? I mean, is it true that weathermen are meteorologists, or are they really just somebody who stands in front of the screen and reads the script? I'm a little unclear on that.
Yeah, people keep telling me that they're meteorologists, but I don't know, the pretty face. I don't see a lot of scientists who end up being that good looking standing in front of a teleprompter. It's very rare that the nerdy guy in school ends up being the one who looks like an underwear model standing on News 7 telling you it could be 6 inches or it could be 9 inches. You never know. You're just going to have to come and find out. I don't believe it, because it's like, oh, well, ladies, tomorrow we're going to have 12 inches of rain, and then we get 3 inches, and it's like, I don't think you know what 12 inches really looks like, guy.
Apparently not. But he's on TV, so maybe he doesn't need to.
If you can say anything convincingly enough, with enough conviction, people will give you a job and allow you to do it.
That is a fact. That is a fact. I would like to say something about the town that I work in, about Hollywood. And I'll tell you a little story that I think you'll appreciate. So when we finished cutting this movie, we cut picture. Now we're working on sound and music, visual effects. But you could see the story, see the movie as it plays out. And my producing partner showed it to this big agent, a suit, right, a Hollywood suit, whose job it is to sell independent movies to distributors. An expert, what America's looking for. And he watches our movie and he says, Guns N' Moses, great movie. You guys are going to make a lot of money in streaming. So I say, well, thank you, but we see this as a theatrical film. And he says, yeah, but this movie about a rabbi whose synagogue is attacked and he becomes an unlikely gunfighter and detective and he pursues the leads, etc., an edge-of-your-seat thriller. It's nice, but how many Jews are there really in America? I said, he says, New York, L.A., Florida. I said, listen, that's an important part of our audience, but a much bigger part of our audience is Christian and conservative. He says, what are you talking about? Those people hate Jews. Now, this guy is an expert in who America is and what America is looking for. And that's all you have to know about how Hollywood has just lost the plot, and why they keep relying on, sequel, prequel, reboot, retread, and they run those franchises into the ground. And even the big successful movies that you hear are making a lot of money, they spent so much more money in marketing that they just expect to lose every time a movie's in the theaters, and they hope to make it up in streaming because they've lost connection with who America is and what America is and what they're looking for. As far as Christians and conservatives hating Jews, I know this guy's wrong. I know he's a liar. Or not a liar, he just doesn't know. Because I also have a Jewish wisdom platform that my wife and I run called Accidental Talmudists. We share what's beautiful in the tradition, teaching Torah, teaching history, teaching scripture, teaching the oral tradition of our sages. We have 1 million followers on Facebook, 200,000 more on Instagram. And probably half of those people, maybe a little more than half, are not Jewish. And we learn together every day. They're not trying to make me Christian. I'm not trying to make them Jewish. But we have so much in common that we can learn together. And so I know them. I know the people that this guy, the suit, flies over between New York and L.A. And I know, and I tested it, and I watch them watch our film and respond to our film. They love our movie. Our movie respects the values of Red State America, gives them a thriller that they can get behind. There's no reason to have profanity or nudity in our movie, and so it's not in our movie. It takes firearms use seriously. It portrays it realistically. And it's just such a fun movie. And people can see the trailer and learn about it. We're in theaters right now at gunsandmosesmovie.com. And if you don't live near one of the theaters, we're going to be in streaming pretty soon. And then, we're just very excited about all of America seeing this movie because Hollywood is just not making movies like this, and we are.
I'm glad that you are, because everything that comes out of Hollywood these days sucks. More to Hollywood being off the, completely off the thread. Democrats are melting down after comedian Stephen Colbert gets fired. And I'm wondering, it's like, did they just discover that half the country hates Democrats? I don't think that they're discovering that the half the country hates Democrats. I think they're discovering that Stephen Colbert isn't funny.
Woke kills comedy. When you're told what you can laugh at and what you can't laugh at, who you can make fun of and who you can't make fun of. I mean, remember how Howard Stern used to be? I mean, there was nobody he wasn't going to point the finger at and ridicule. Same with Saturday Night Live, the way it used to be. Yep. But now it's all pre-approved narratives. And, I mean, they say that it's not because of this merger that they want to get approved, et cetera. And I think it's not. I think that they pay this guy a fortune. They're not getting the viewership because America is just like, you guys are not funny. Why should I stay up late and watch your show? And somebody who's like just such a different treatment of the late night hour, this Greg Gutfeld, he's doing something completely different. And while he's certainly on Fox News and has conservative values, he laughs at Trump all the time. And so I think that what's going to end up happening on CBS and NBC, they're going to get rid of all these expensive guys in their late shows, and they're going to bring in someone young, someone different, someone funny. I think we're actually at a great time in history, at an inflection point, where at the end of the day, these companies need to make money, and they can only, kiss butt at the cocktail parties where they want to be accepted by having the pre-approved virtue signaling attitudes for so long before, they just get fired for running the company into the ground, and something new will come along. And so it's an exciting time where I think there's going to be better entertainment on the horizon.
Maybe it's just me, but I think I'm holding out because I know he's been blackballed, but Ricky Gervais, when he hosted the Oscars, that was the best, 15 minutes. It absolutely slaughtered. Watching the faces drop as they're all, yay, as they end up being the butt of the joke. You see the joke in the best.
He skewered them. It was hilarious.
The beauty of it was he would start off every joke with that solid thread where everyone's laughing and everyone's clapping and joking, and then it goes to that dark place, and then they're like, "Oh, I'm the butt of the joke." Damn. I absolutely love that. That was pure comedy, and it's sad because as we were discussing at the beginning of the show, the only we don't have in my generation any real comics that are out there doing the politically incorrect thing, willing to say the stuff no one's willing to say. I mean, the only comics out there, and a lot of the ones who I thought were the politically incorrect, who were willing to say all the stuff you're not supposed to say out loud, are going woke too. Like Bill Burr was the guy who'd say whatever he wanted, and then he's starting to go woke, and I'm like, dude, don't be one of those guys. Dave Chappelle is another guy who will say whatever the hell he wants, and he's gotten to the point where he's like, I don't care about making any of y'all happy. Y'all can all pound sand.
I don't agree with everything Chappelle says, but I'll be the first to admit he's freaking funny.
Yeah. And that's what I'm
and
looking for.
And he doesn't give a crap what people think.
Yeah.
God bless him for that.
That's what I'm looking for in a comedian. I want to laugh. I want to enjoy my time. I want the art form to continue. I'm so glad you're doing what you're doing. I'm so glad you're making movies, and as a big supporter of Second Amendment, everybody should get out there and should support Salvador's work. Again, that's Salvador Litvak, author of Let My People Laugh, the greatest Jewish jokes of all time, and
bestseller on Amazon.
See, there you go.
Sir.
And new The Guns and Moses film. Okay, this is an action thriller. You should get out there. It's John Wick for Jews. Let's get it done. All right,
let's get it done. Thank you for having me.
Hey, thank you for coming on.
All the best, brother. Take care.
God bless.
Bye.
You too.
God bless you.
All right, man. It has been a great episode of Granite State Live. We got to have a little bit more fun. I know the topics got a little deep, and I know they got a little dark and depressing for a moment. The human trafficking Jeffrey Epstein thing, especially when, after some of the major successes you've seen in the Trump administration, we're starting to look at the midterms, and we're starting to not look as pretty as we were hoping that we would. And I understand why.
The shadows are starting to cast themselves. We're gonna need to get in action, and obviously we hope the Citizens Doge plays a part in that, but we hope that everybody kind of understands the sense of urgency of where the country is right now.
I completely agree. We're going to have Scott Brown on. We're going to have Chris Bright. We're going to have as many of the federal guests or federal candidates on to discuss their races, and hopefully we'll have some of the mayoral candidates and Senate candidates, so on and so forth, because I think, and you know what, I'm open to having on Kelly Ayotte and anybody who's willing to try and fight for freedom and liberty, and I don't have to agree with you 100% of the time, as long as we're firing in the same direction, as long as we can come together on the things that matter, like let's work together. All right, and we'll save the stuff that we disagree on until later. But we already knew that it was going to get to the way it is, right? We knew this coming into this election cycle. A lot of the stuff Trump promised was not the type of stuff that you're going to get immediate results from. These are problems that have persisted over the course of decades, and we have to fix this because what's coming is we're speeding towards a cliff. And if we don't put on the brakes fast, there's no coming back from it. So, sorry to end on such a sad note, but I hope you get activated. Contact Citizens Doge, help them out with everything. Get activated in your local community, because if you're not getting activated in your local community, you are a burden to the U.S. society. Yes, I'm putting it on you. It's your fault. The world is failing. It's your fault. Okay? Benjamin Franklin said, "It's Republic if you can keep it. Get off your ass." Now, tune back into Granite State Live next week. We will hopefully have Keith Hanson back in studio. Up next is Shadow Band. Get all of your content from Ram TV at ramtv.com. You can find Blue Collar Intellectual Podcast, Drew Allen Show, Shadow Band, and Granite State Live there. You can get all of your episodes on all social media. You can find Citizens Doge on all social media. Make sure to follow. Make sure to contact them. Make sure to get activated. See you next week. God bless. And I'm out.